social observations have very much formed, at least in the early stages, the backbone of your stand-up comedy career. Do you now regret some of the jokes you made? Let me give you an example. You said, my mother, black South African, was saying, get me a white guy, get me a white guy. Well, my father was white Swiss. Of course, he liked chocolate.
That sounds funny to me, even when you say it. That sounded really funny. Why would I regret that?
Why would you regret that? Because some people say that's not really very funny.
But the people laugh. Everyone can say something is not really funny. This is the way some people don't like
Indian food. But is it more than that? Okay, let me give you an example. We have a very well-established black comedian in Britain called Lenny Henry.
Yes.
And he has said that he regrets doing that kind of joke where he said he would wipe his sweating brow and say, I'm leaking chocolate.
But that's different.
Well, it's not. It's using chocolate, isn't it?
But that is different.
Well,
the Swiss love chocolates. Is not a term that is pejorative.
You're referring to your mother's skin colour as chocolate. What he says...
Yes, because my mom is proud to be dark, beautiful chocolate. Yeah. That's what she's saying. Well, and this is, in the book, I talk about this as well. I go, I saw people and race as chocolates.
I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't use that. I'm that colour, and I wouldn't say that.
Listen, when I grew up, I believed that all people were chocolates. My mom was dark chocolate, my dad was white chocolate, and I was milk chocolate. So I see all people. So you see that as funny, but do you not realise that some people might not like that? And Lenny Henry went on to say that joke about how he was leaking chocolate. He says, I knew there had to be a better way of trying to put the message over, putting your jokes over without having to pick on people because of their colour or because of their race. Yes, but...
His view is different from yours.
Because he's Lenny Henry and I'm Trevor Noah.
Yeah, but he's black.
Yes, but he was talking about leaking chocolate, implying that his skin color was not something that belonged to him. That is a different joke.
He's just trying to say that his skin color is chocolate.
No.
You're splitting hairs here.
No, but that is exactly what we should be doing. Because what you're doing is creating...
I'm not sure I would.
You're creating racial jokes.
I would say.
No, you're creating monoliths. You're creating monoliths of jokes, and that's not fair to do. Every single joke has a context. Every single joke comes from a place. The most important thing with comedy is context. Without context, no conversation is complete. Without context, no communication can truly be appreciated.
But somebody could take that out of context.
And you've said it.
I'm putting it to you then. Are you not, given what Lenny Henry said, are you not guilty perhaps with some of your routines or a joke like that, reinforcing prejudices and promoting stereotypes in the minds of people who may be inclined to think like that, and then they'll think, oh, Trevor Noah says his mother's chocolate, I'm going to go around saying that to my black friends, and they might take offence. You could be reinforcing prejudice.
You could be doing anything if you are not doing the opposites. How your action is implied does not define what you were doing.
Okay, let's look at another aspect of race. You moved just a few years ago to the United States. Your routine as a comedian often mimicked Africans and also African Americans. And about African Americans, you have said this: you are not African, but we play along. It's a very loose term, African American, because half the time you use it for people who aren't even African. As long as you're black, they say African American.
I didn't deliver it like that. You're not doing my jokes justice.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'm not Trevor Noah and I'm not a comedian.
No, but you see, that's...
But I'm just asking, are they not African American?
Here's what you're missing. What you're doing right now is the equivalent of me saying, now it's raining more than ever. I'll be here with you forever. You can always be my friend, standing under my umbrella. Ella, 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 A, Ella, 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 A. I seem like a mad person right now because I'm not doing everything that was within the context of the song Umbrella by Rihanna. When you were doing comedy merely by words, I spoke it. My eyes, my voice, my connection with an audience is completely different. People can see when you are being playful. People can see when you are saying something.
So you're being playful about that.
That you don't believe. That is what satire is, though.
Fine.
You're poking holes.
So you're
So you
don't believe what you say.
No. What you're leaving out in that whole joke is what I was talking about was how in America, Anglo-Saxons had successfully removed Americanisms from minorities. So every single group in America had an identity attached to the Americanness except white Americans. So it's African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Latin American, Native
Well,
American.
I don't know. You have
and
Irish
yet-
American,
no,
they're
no, no,
white,
no,
you
no,
have
no, no,
Polish
no, no, no.
Americans.
But that didn't become on a box. And this is a joke for Americans. Understand that. So as an American, they understand this.
All right,
On the boxes, there is no Irish American. There is only
fine,
white.
but not looking
But there
at-
is African American and there is Asian American.
But you know,
and there, do you get what I'm
all
saying?
right,
So
I do get
that's
what you're
the whole
saying.
point
But
of
the
the
point
joke.
I'm trying to make is that there was a shift amongst the Black American community to start calling themselves African American. They didn't want a
Yes.
definition by default, i.e., you were not white, so therefore you were black.
Yes.
They wanted to have a hyphenated identity that linked them with the continent of their ancestors. And therefore, when you say, oh, they're not really African, they're playing along, you cannot disconnect what you say from this debate that's really, captured the imagination of the African American, Black American
Yes.
community. And also, the point I want to make to you is when you say that, it now feeds into a debate that's current in the United States. For example, Kwame Kwei-Armah, the Black Britain theatre director in the United States, says he has conversations with African Americans now who are saying, we want to go back to being called Black American because we don't have anything in common with this recently arrived African Americans, be they Somalis, Nigerians, South Africans, such as you, they have different language and so on. So what you say feeds into that debate, and it sounds like you're saying there is a difference between African Americans and Black Americans.
There definitely is a difference.
Right.
But these are differences that can be celebrated or used to separate people. Noting differences does not implicitly make it a bad thing. When you are noticing differences, you can note them for good reasons. It's the same reason we notice different colors or we notice different flowers. That can be a good thing. If you're using it to celebrate, you can use that same thing the same way apartheid did to separate people. When you talk about African Americans, the one conversation that I was talking about was I was traveling America and I was going to a lot of universities, and I came to realize in many universities in America, the conversation you're having right now, they had an African American student body. And very quickly they noticed a shift, because they could not lump black people into a monolith. They could not lump, because there were people from the Caribbean who said, we're not African American. There were people from Africa who were like, these are not our views. We are Africans in America.
So
there
that's
is a difference.
interesting. Yeah.
And so what people themselves did was they said, you can't just lump us into this group.
Fine. And does that difference mean that it doesn't act as a cohesive form? Because I'm thinking in 2014, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, the celebrated Nigerian author, she said that when she visited the US, she felt that her African-American classmate was annoyed with her because she didn't share their anger. And she said that she was not burdened herself by America's terrible racial history. That difference, does it result in the African Americans who've arrived recently in the United States, such as yourself, acting differently or having a different psyche from the Black Americans who are the descendants of slaves and have lived for many, many years, obviously, in the US?
Well, I will say this. I will be careful to not comment on the experience of every single person, because I'm only myself and I can only experience the people that are around me. What I do know is this. In terms of our racial histories, South Africa and America are very similar. When I talk to a Black American person, there are many stories that we share as human beings. There are many oppressions that we have experienced through our selective, oppressors. I think those are the things that many people can relate to across the board.
So there's more to unite, even though you say there are differences.
There is definitely more to unite, especially when you are being oppressed as a group. Because you must remember, when you are in the US as a Black African man, I can tell you now that if you have an encounter with the police, they are not going to split the hairs.
They're not going to say,
you're
excuse me,
talking
Trevor
about.
Noah, are you from South Africa
Yes,
or are you from Detroit?
That doesn't happen.
No,
that
right.
doesn't